Alright, y'all know who it is. It's your boy Leo Rydell here from Geekly Goods, guys, to talk about the rhythm section today and review that movie. But before we dive in, y'all know the drill. Hit that subscribe button and ding that bell to be sure to get the latest Geekly Good videos straight to your notifications, guys. We do videos on movies, TV, gaming, all kinds of stuff in the Geekverse. We even do food as well, do some anime, guys. But let's not wait too much longer. Let's dive right into this one. So the rhythm section is about a woman named Stephanie Patrick who goes on a path of self-destruction after a tragic plane crash kills her family. She finds out it wasn't an accident and goes on a bloodthirsty quest for revenge. Doesn't that sound like a pretty exciting movie? An exciting plot? Well, unfortunately, that explanation I just gave you is more exciting than the plot itself, and more exciting than the movie actually came out to be. I feel like this had a lot of good intention, but unfortunately the execution for the movie just wasn't that good. Now, this movie is directed by Reed Morano, who I haven't even heard of. I had to actually look her name up. She's done a couple episodes of The Handmaid's Tale. Don't know exactly which episodes, but I know she's directed on that and several other movies and TV shows, and I haven't really heard or seen much of her stuff, so I don't have a lot to go off of. And this movie is starring Blake Lively, Jude Law, and Sterling K. Brown, pretty much the main faces of the film, and not a lot of others. I just want to jump right in and start with the good. The good, Blake Lively. She is awesome. She's not really in a very serious role that often, and I did like her in this serious role. She kind of had this Jason Bourne vibe going for her, and I really enjoyed watching her quest for revenge and her bloodthirsty, vicious mindset to really get the people who caused the death of her family. Jude Law and Sterling K. Brown are Jude Law and Sterling K. Brown. They're both very talented actors. They play good characters. But I gotta say, for the good, that's about it. I'm gonna move into, unfortunately, the rest. Now, I gotta start with Jude Law and Sterling K. Brown. They played some characters that were pretty important to Blake Lively's character, but they're critically underused. I want to say the first act is all Jude Law and Blake Lively, and then he's pretty much gone after that. I would have loved to see some more of Jude Law, but unfortunately, he is typecast into the mentor role that he was put into Captain Marvel and put in Fantastic Beasts. So it's just, I don't know, we've got this new typecast for a mentor type role for Jude Law, and I wanted to see something different, something more refreshing, but it was nice to see him in a role he's comfortable in. He's still super underused in this movie. We barely get to see him after about the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and I would have loved to see him through and through. He does pop up here and there. We hear him on phone calls, but part of me was like, what was the budget looking like? Because it seems to be like they couldn't afford to have him on the whole time. Sterling K. Brown, same thing. His character enters at the point where Jude Law's character is gone. So, I'm not spoiling here, nobody. He doesn't get killed, but again, Sterling K. Brown kind of works his way in, and he still doesn't get that much screen time, to be honest. His character is still underused. He's on phone calls most of the movie. So, these two characters, played by Jude Law and Sterling K. Brown, critically underused. I wish they would have been used a lot more, and it might have kind of elevated the movie a little bit if there was a little bit more of those two, but I don't know. Due to the rest of the problems, I don't foresee that being true. There was a very, very awkward shot selection. There was this weird shot that they kept retreating back to that was like this really shaky cam movement, and you could tell it wasn't actually mounted. It was on a GoPro, and it seemed to me that somebody was running behind Blake Lively while she was running, and they kept retreating to that shot, but she was not centered. She was actually in the kind of bottom third of the shot, and there was all this headroom above her, and the camera was just shaking and jumbling, and it kind of looked like, I don't know, punked a little bit. It just didn't look that professional to me. It just kind of emulated like a student film, and not to say student films aren't professional and aren't beautiful, but it just kind of seemed amateurish, and it just was not a great selection to me, and the cuts in the film were just so jarring. I think probably the worst part of this film is the editing. The editing was really bad because there were spaces in the film that needed more, and there were spaces in the film that needed way less. There were continuous jump cuts throughout. I mean, awkward jump cuts to where Blake Lively's head would be one place, and then suddenly it's the very next second, it's like over here. It was just these horrible jump cuts, and there were some awkward dissolves, like some cross dissolves, almost like they imported the whole movie into Adobe Premiere, chopped through, and then they were like, throw a dissolve here, a dissolve there to get rid of this space in here, get rid of this part of the shot. They were crushing it down to the point where the editing didn't really even make sense. So it was just kind of hard to follow sometimes. Well, it wasn't really hard to follow, but the editing was just pretty crappy, because the reason it wasn't really hard to follow was the script was decent, but there were some lines that just kind of trailed off. Like they would talk, and then it would just end, and there would be this weird montage of all this action happening, and not good action as in explosions, gun battles. Like, no, talking across the table without any audio. It was kind of weird, and that's another point I want to bring up. Speaking of action, there's a stifling lack of action in this movie. I mean, come on. I know Blake Lively herself said she's not trying to be the female James Bond, but you got Barbara Broccoli on here. You got most of the Bond producers on here. Come on now. We gotta make this a little more action-packed. There's actually a scene in the movie where she is being chased by a couple of bodyguards, I guess you could say. And she's being chased in a car, and this is a car chase scene. You know, we're used to shots that show the cars, that show possible police interference, that show even pedestrians possibly, show cars skidding up to the sidewalk. Nope, there was none of that. There was weird shots that would get Blake Lively's profile, so it would be her profile, and it would show the window and things that were going on outside of the window, but it wouldn't show us the cars. It was really weird, and it would like go from the window and pan all the way to the front and give us this perspective first-person shot of her driving in the car. And that was pretty cool, but then it would like show us the back, and it would show the guys like wrecking into her car. I just thought it was poorly executed shot-wise, editing-wise. The writing was kind of weak. The involvement of Jude Law and Sterling K. Brown was super weak sauce. Just a lot of weak in this movie, and the villain was weak as well. He was barely even in it. He's sneaking and slipping around the whole movie. It's honestly, it really was just a pretty weak movie, I gotta say. If you want to catch this movie, if you're a Blake Lively fan, I suggest checking it out, because this is a little bit different for Blake Lively. She did have that movie with Anna Kendrick that was a little more serious, but she is very, like, different in this role. She's definitely got a more dark, harsh, gritty tone, and I do like that, but everything else is just a sloppy mess, unfortunately. I'm gonna have to give the rhythm section a 5 out of 10, and I hate to do that because it looked like it had so much potential, and I want to say, honestly, no offense to Reed Morano, but with another director, it possibly could have come out a little bit better. I don't know. That's just me, because the actors weren't the problem. It was the editing, the editing, the shot selection, and the direction just weren't that good. So I gotta say, 5 out of 10, but you guys let me know. Have you seen Rhythm Section? And if you have, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. What did you think about it? And as always, be sure to hit that subscribe button, ding that bell, thumbs up this video if you like this content, and we will see you next time on Geekly Goods.